In the world of Zelda, there are two villains that are remembered the most for multiple reasons. They are by far the most popular, but sadly enough, we saw them in completely different games and they aren't related to each other in any way. Thanks to this, people have always wondered which villain is stronger and a bigger threat to the worlds Link visits. So today we will take a look at them to see who would win a one-on-one battle between the two. Now in one corner we have Ganon, who is seen in the games as a Gerudo human or a boar-like beast. In the games he has been many things, from a simple monster to a powerful warlock with deeper motives to his actions. He's the reincarnation of the Demon King Demise and is the possessor of the triforce of power, imbued with the essence of the goddess Din. These things make Ganon unimaginably strong and grant him endless power, making him one of the strongest beings in Hyrule, being the source of darkness and evil in the lands ruled by Zelda, and of course Link has to defeat him again and again. And in the other corner we have Majora, a mysterious mask with one of the vaguest origin stories in the entire franchise. Apparently it's an ancient artifact that was used long ago by a really old tribe for their bewitching rituals. But the mask's wicked power became so great that it was sealed away to prevent a great catastrophe from happening. However, at some point the ancient tribe that used it vanished, and so no one accurately knows the true nature of its power. Now in the game named after this dark artifact, people are afraid that great devastation could befall Termina if the mask is not taken back from the Skull Kid who stole it. And so Link has to defeat it so he can save the people of the land from a horrible fate, a gigantic moon crashing into the world. However, if Ganondorf and Majora would fight, then who would win? Well, in order to find out, we need to look at a couple of important things that will have a big influence on the battle. We will be looking at their equipment, abilities, battle experience, and stamina and health. All these things will be crucial. Let's start with the very first point. What kind of stuff do they mainly use in battle? Well, when it comes to Ganondorf, he makes use of two types of weapons in almost every game we see him in. It's either swords or a trident, and this combination of melee weapons is actually really useful because it allows for a lot of versatility. One-handed and two-handed swords are great for close combat, as well as being able to be used as a hammer using the murder stroke. This is a technique where you grab the blade and use the guard to smash into your foe, which is useful when he has thick armor. You can also grab a part of the blade and the grip for more precise stabs in specific weak points, which is handy as well. And yes, all these techniques 100% work. So those swords he uses in games like The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are great for one-on-one melee combat. However, he also has a trident. This weapon is more limited, but when it comes to range, they're amazing. Either poking his enemy from afar, keeping him at a distance, or being able to throw it at them. So while it's not as useful, it still gives him some good advantages, which the swords don't have. So he's in quite a good position. Aside from that, he actually wears armor. This helps him survive devastating attacks. However, in most games, he seems to wear some sort of hard leather instead of plating. So while it does help, the armor will never stop any serious blows. Hard leather just isn't tough enough for that. Now when it comes to Majora's Mask, he actually doesn't use weapons a whole lot, and doesn't have any armor as far as I can see. In the boss fight he just attacks by shooting energy balls and flying at you like a frisbee with razors on the edges, which is a bit reminiscent of one of the James Bond movies now that I think about it. However, in his last form, known as Majora's Wrath, he gets whip-like tentacles that shoot out from his hands, which he uses to continuously attack Link during the boss fight, either doing normal whip attacks that will hit you from really far away, or even grabbing you in order to throw you across the room. Now, while this weapon is quite slow, it deals a ton of damage and is very effective at an incredibly long range. Aside from that, he doesn't really have any equipment. And this is even a long shot, since they came out of his body. Now, if the two would fight each other, then Majora actually has an advantage in battle, because a trident doesn't have enough range to even come close to the whips. The only thing Ganondorf could do is try and get really close. Then Majora is in big trouble. However, he can still jump away, making it less effective. Normally in the boss fight, you would just use your bow to stun him, and then attack with your sword. However, Ganondorf never really uses the bow. The best he could do is throw his trident, but if he misses, he might lose the weapon for good. So when it comes to that, he's certainly at a disadvantage. So will his armor help him in any way? Well, no. It might help a little, but it won't really stop the blunt force trauma of being hit with the whip and being thrown across the room. Now, if it was plate armor, then the whip would be largely ineffective, since it's no match against steel, and you can't really bypass it in any way. Normally, knights would try to land a hit in a gap of the armor, for example under the armpits, but this wouldn't be an option for Majora. However, Ganondorf only wears armor that seems to be made of hard-boiled leather, which is really tough, but this won't help a whole lot here. So Majora wins this segment. His main weapon is just really useful as long as his enemy doesn't have a bow. Now on to the next segment, their attacks. When it comes to this, Ganondorf has a million of them since he has been seen in so many games. For example, in Ocarina of Time, he's an immensely powerful sorcerer, as well as a very talented swordsman. And in a bunch of other games, he can shoot energy balls, transform into various things like puppet creatures, summon ghost cavalry, teleport, do fire-based attacks, and more. He has an incredible amount of abilities, all of which are strong and extremely useful in combat. But he has one more trick up his sleeve, being able to transform into his beast form known as Ganon, gaining immense power, becoming the strongest being in Hyrule. And of course, we're talking about the Triforce of Power Ganondorf, which is by far the toughest version. Now, if we take a look at Majora, who was only seen in one game, we can see that he has nowhere near the amount of abilities his opponent has. He can shoot some energy balls, fly at you like a frisbee, shoot a laser, run around really fast, and throw spinning tops. While these abilities can be powerful and useful, they are nothing compared to the powers of Ganondorf. He can counter his whip by teleporting around, shoot energy balls or fire-based attacks from a distance, and even become a beast, so he is way too big to be thrown around. It's clear that Ganondorf has a gigantic advantage in this department. The amount of abilities he has is insane, and this gives him options in every scenario. So sadly enough, Majora will not win this no matter what he does. The powers of the Triforce are just way too much. So Ganondorf wins this point. On to our next one, their battle experience. Who is more skilled in the ancient art of war? Well, Ganondorf is known as an amazing sword fighter and has shown this off in a lot of games like the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Here Link has a one-on-one battle with him where he uses different sword fighting attacks as well as some amazing dodging moves. And in his lifetime he has fought in a lot of battles, becoming incredibly experienced in all those years. Another thing that gives him an edge is his unnaturally long lifespan, having lived for ages at a time, making him more experienced than a dozen of professional soldiers combined. So does Majora have a chance against such a warrior? Well, sadly enough, no. He was only seen in one game, and even in that title, he didn't appear to be very skilled in combat. He didn't even take it seriously. So I expect that even when he fights Ganondorf, he will mess around a lot. And even if he focuses, he's no match for Ganondorf in this department. So this one will also go to Ganondorf, the more experienced fighter for sure. Now on to our last point, their health and stamina. Who will fight the longest before giving up? Well, when it comes to this, we have seen Ganondorf survive a lot of different attacks. For example, the stab in the head seen in Ocarina of Time. Sure, he was sealed away afterwards, but he did live, which is certainly impressive. And all of this is possible because of one thing, the Triforce of Power. Using this, he's capable of enduring mortal wounds, such as having his chest pierced by a sword during his attempted execution in Twilight Princess. Only the most powerful sacred weapons such as the Master Sword are able to kill him. Everything else would wound or hurt him, but won't defeat him. So he can keep going for a really long time, while Majora's Mask can't do this. But there's something that's way more important. In the upper right corner there are more videos and even playlists with all kinds of stuff. So go check it out, as well as subscribe and click the bell button. I know some of you don't do this, so please do it. I know who you are. Now let's continue. Sure, he's still a really strong boss with some insane powers like pulling a moon out of orbit, but in combat he doesn't last forever. So because of that, Ganondorf wins this round as well. And now that we've covered all the points, who would win? Well, as you can imagine, with Ganondorf winning all rounds except the first, he has a really high chance of beating Majora. But still, Majora could kind of cheat the whole fight by making a moon crash down on Ganondorf, or even transform him into another being, cursing him. However, the chances of this being successful are quite low. So because of that, the Lord of Darkness from Hyrule wins.